officer at the Ford Foundation. I use he, him pronouns. I'll kick it over to Tomas and Andrew to introduce themselves, and then we'll dive right in. Tomas?
Thank you, Jason. Hi, everyone. Tomas Robles, Co-Executive Director of Living United for Change in Arizona, otherwise known as Lucha.
Hi, y'all. My name is Andrew Allison, he, him. I'm the co-founder and chair of Austinites for Progressive Reform in Austin, Texas.
Great, thank you. And we're here today to really dive in on what it looks like to reimagine governance and the role that ballot initiatives play in our evolving democracy. And we've seen a shift in how folks in it, how we're thinking about power, and therefore, if we're thinking about power differently, how we're thinking about governance. And we've seen that recently, but it's been a steady drumbeat over time. And so what we want to do is dive into two particular places, in Arizona and in Texas, to see a little bit more about how Tomas and Andrew have been working with folks on the ground to do exactly this. So I want to kick it over to you, Tomas, to start off and just kick off with a question about how you are both reimagining governance in your states, in Arizona and in the city of Austin, and then to share as you're reimagining governance, what are the role that ballot measures have played in that reimagination?
Thank you, Jason. And again, everyone, my name is Tomas, he, him. And for us, ballot initiatives have always been rooted in one thing, and that's grassroots organizing, face-to-face conversations, listening sessions, where you listen to the community and you hear what their day-to-day lives are, right? And a lot of times, day-to-day life struggles are not completed by electing the right candidate. Sometimes you have to pass policies in a way that can affect people's lives directly or indirectly. And so for us, the ballot initiative process was so huge because Arizona for decades has been a conservative state. And we know that in our legislature, it is virtually impossible to pass progressive legislation, at least in its current form. But what the ballot initiative has done is, one, it has allowed us to push issues that resonate with everyone. Even though Arizona is a conservative state, it doesn't mean that conservative voters don't believe in progressive principles. A great factor of it was both the minimum wage initiative in 2016, where we raised the wages to $12 to its current rate now at $12.15, or 2020's ballot initiative, which was Prop 208, which was a tax the rich initiative to fund our K through 12 education system. These are two issues that are considered progressive in nature, but were voted heavily by all voters in the state. The second thing, the way we've been able to use this to build power is because we've been ingrained in all the communities within the state. They've known who we are. They see our logos. They see our people. They look like the people that are being talked to. And that way you form a bond and a trust. And when you use that organizing and you build engagement that way, an engagement toward an issue that they themselves, if they go out to the ballot box, can pass themselves without relying on the candidate, it becomes so much of a powerful thing. And it's also helped us build power in the states because not only have we shown that we can drive voters to the polls and get them motivated and get folks elected that we need to be in those offices, but it's also shown that our candidates, especially progressive candidates or moderate candidates that call themselves progressives, if they have a hesitation about supporting these initiatives because they think it'll help them get reelected, it's actually the opposite effect. If you don't come out and support these progressive initiatives early, if you don't showcase that you're also in your actions and your words are supporting progressive initiatives, you will dwindle support in times where you need it the most. And for us, those have been some of the major ways that we've been able to build power and build governance, because now people are engaged. And when they see an initiative pass and the power they can do by just voting on something like a tax increase or a minimum wage increase, they see that real direct power exists and we can make it happen.
Thanks, Tomas. Andrew?
Well, for us, we are a charter amendment campaign here in Austin that has a goal of making Austin the most pro-democracy city in the country, with 5 separate ballot propositions that would all have the effect of making Austin's local government more representative, responsive, diverse, and accountable to the people that it serves. I'll just cover those propositions quickly so you all know what I'm talking about. We're talking about moving our mayor's election to November of presidential years, ranked choice voting in city elections, switching our form of government to a mayor-council form so we can elect our chief executive, expanding the size of our council, and adopting a democracy dollars program. And we got started really for two reasons. Austin's really at a turning point right now. We have a lot of challenges that are facing our city. And we believe that we're only going to be able to solve those challenges comprehensively and equitably if we have democratic structures where everybody is heard. And the second reason we got started is to do something to push back against the new era of voter suppression that we're in this country and in our state in particular. And we believe that cities have a unique role to play in doing everything they can do to increase turnout to combat what we're seeing at the statewide level and how the states together are impacting the federal dynamic. We have a coalition of leaders from across the city. That was very key to building our campaign. 100 volunteer members of our leadership committee from all parts of our city and diverse backgrounds and diverse ways that they all interact with our local government. And our timeline is pretty quick here. We are coming up on a municipal election on May 1st, where each of these 5 propositions will be voted on by the Austin voters at large. And it's important in Texas, really, to be pursuing ballot measures at a local level. 6 of the top 25 largest cities in America are in Texas. And Texas does not allow ballot petitions at a statewide level. But in Texas cities, they are allowed. So if we can pass ballot measures at the city level, we can do a lot to influence the dynamic of the political conversation and the issues that are being talked about statewide or maybe even nationally. And certainly we could change the policy and election landscape, not just in our cities, but across Texas. And because of Texas's importance nationally, like Arizona, across the country as a whole.
Wow. Part of what I'm hearing from both of what you're saying, Tomas and Andrew, is yes, there are challenges that this type of reimagination addresses, challenges that are structural, that allows you to move past some of the structural barriers, challenges around people who are elected that to represent the people, when in fact they're not representing people on the issues that are reflective of what the majority of people in this space care about. And so this ballot initiative is a tool to be able to use to address some of those barriers. But the other part of what I see is that it speaks to both the pathway that you all described, the pathway, and on that pathway there's organizing. On that pathway there's engagement. On that pathway you're building up the capacity of people in a way that doesn't end just on a day that the ballot initiative is voted on. And then also I see not just pathways, but possibilities. That part of what you're naming, Andrew, is that afterwards, there are possibilities to do much more. Even on the organizer side, there's possibility with people who are motivated, engaged, and et cetera. And so I see both the immediate effects, but also the long-term building that happens when you use ballot initiatives as a way to reimagine governance, which is amazing and really great work. And so given what you said, and given this conversation around just being able to reimagine, I would imagine it's not easy. Tomas, it's probably taken a long time to bring Arizona to where it is now. And I know you still have want to bring it a long way as well with you and your peers. So what have been some of the critical challenges and opportunities for you, for Lucha, for advocates in Arizona that you've had to face and that you had to embrace to help you reimagine governance?
Absolutely. And so it's taken us over 10 years to get to this part of the state. 10 years of organizing, 10 years of putting the issues first over candidates, 10 years of challenging the powers that be in the establishment on both sides, both the ones that are opposition and the ones that we consider allies. And so what we find ourselves in a situation is that although Arizona has turned blue from a federal standpoint, that we have, we elected President Biden, and we chose a Democrat for the first time in a generation, and that for the first time in a very long time, we have 2 Democratic senators. We still have a long ways to go through statewide electeds to really claim power to be able to pass policies at the legislative side. We still have a Republican legislature. And this year we've seen part of the obstacles that come from passing really amazing ballot initiatives is you have the sore loser syndrome. You have people that once these initiatives pass, the first thing they do is they take legal action. They try to find a way to make it seem like these initiatives are not constitutional, or if there was some shadiness happening. And they get these Republican legislators to stack the decks at the court. Governor Ducey has added 4 Supreme Court justices since 2016, creating a almost entire conservative judge panel. And so these are the obstacles that you face once you win. The second part is the Republican legislature. This year, much like Georgia and other states, we've had over 100 100 pieces of legislation designed to repress and suppress the vote for BIPOC communities here in the state. We've seen bills that would remove 400,000 people from the permanent early voting list. We've seen a ballot initiative legislative proposal that would require 55% of the vote for an initiative to pass this year. Right now, it's 50+1. We've also seen at the most extreme levels that you would need to get your mail-in ballot, which we've had for 20 years. Your mail-in ballot would need to be notarized, and you would have to sign an affidavit to be able to even mail your ballot. And so these are some of the examples that you have to deal with from an obstacle standpoint. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that a big obstacle that we have is with the ally funders that we have. Many times, and in some cases, funders believe that because they bring the funding, that they can choose how we speak to our communities on a variety of issues. And many times we see that fail instead of succeed, because if you bring a non-genuine message to our communities, regardless of the policy and how progressive it is, if we can't speak from the heart and we can't speak honestly of what this can do and how we can get it done, it's not going to succeed. And we've seen an example of that with our voting rights initiative that we did last year, that we were not able to get on the ballot. Not every ballot initiative is a success, and we work to strive. At the same time, the opportunities are endless. You build a massive movement when you get people to believe that their vote, their volunteering, their door-to-door canvassing, their voter registration can lead to major policies being passed. And finally, it's developing leaders. Arizona is a brand new movement from the stake of, when we started in 2010, we had no infrastructure. To now we have a slew of progressive political operatives, organizers, high-level strategists. And they all came up through ballot initiatives, through organizing, and through development of leadership in young BIPOC folks that could see themselves as someone that could drive policy in a state like ours. And that is the opportunity you have with ballot initiatives. You're able to decide the direction of the state through your policy proposals.
Thanks, Tomas. Andrew, I want to quickly kick it over to you. You spoke a little bit about some of what Tomas just talked about, but also the influence that could have on the statewide. And so can you talk about the path ahead a little bit as the path ahead, given that it's a city-based dynamic, but also you're looking to have statewide influence?
Absolutely. Well, Austin has led on democracy reforms for the last couple of decades in Texas. We implemented campaign contribution limits a few decades ago where there were none before. And we also went to single member districts for council and moved our elections from May to November back in 2012. So we hope to have our 5 propositions add to that record of democracy reform. There are a lot of cities in Texas that haven't implemented all of those reforms. Many still have their elections in May, for example, for mayor or city council, where turnout is 10%. So we hope that by passing these reforms in Austin, we can then have a kind of roadmap and blueprint for democracy reform at the municipal level in Texas. And we can work with advocates from Houston, San Antonio, Fort Worth, Dallas, El Paso, and other cities across the state to work on an agenda for democracy reform that fits those cities, that is homegrown in those cities, but that can use some of the lessons that we've learned from our work here. Because if we have this kind of inter-city partnership across Texas, that's where our power truly lies as progressive reformers. And we hope that can be the way to impact state level results.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks so much. Well, I know we're wrapping up, but part of what I've heard and I hear is there's a long path ahead, and there's some challenges inside of it. A ballot initiatives can be a powerful tool, but the way that this works in conjunction with people on the ground, it's a long-term fight, and folks are fighting against and creating challenges along the way. And so the not just the ballot initiative day where people are voting, but the long-term investment and the ability and the flexibility to be able to engage in each particular place is essential. And so that's part of what we're getting into now as it moves forward, thinking about ballot initiatives in the way that the future ballot initiatives, in the way that if we're trying to reimagine governance and build the power that needs to be built to get to where we're trying to go, where equality, justice, freedom, and power, that it's a long road ahead. And I'm so glad you, Tomas, and you, Andrew, are in this fight along with so many others on the ground, because it's a long fight, but it's one well worth fighting. So thank you so much. And I'll kick it back over to the BIS team. Thank you.